And we've literally had men, state an intention, a goal or purpose on day one of an immersion. And a week later, like magical is about the only word you could describe it. Shit reorganizes in their life and that thing happens. We've seen it was like, I'm going to do this within the next 6 months. And a month later, 2 months later, boom, it's already done. It's an amplifier.
All right. Welcome back. Another episode of Ignite the King. Michael Diamond here.
Russell Reynolds here.
We are, well, in a sense, going to be dating ourselves on this episode, not our age, but where we are in time, because we have an immersion coming up next week, and the energy is starting to build, and we wanted to bring the listeners into what the energy of a 3.5 day men's immersion feels like for this episode. So we'll cut that part out a little bit, but
I'm just laughing. I'm thinking, dating yourself does not mean what you do when you don't have a girlfriend. It's not what we're talking about.
All right. Well, coming back in, on a previous episode, we talked about how a man begins the journey of men's work of doing the self-growth, personal growth. And we said, so much of it is getting over that inertia barrier, be willing to look at yourself, step over that first scary place and look in the mirror and take ownership, and how it takes so much courage and energy, right? And we want to talk about, for those men that I just want to jump in the deep end. I want to go full on, full tilt and deep dive this work. That's what we do in these 3.5 day immersive experiences. That's the way that we've had new men come into our programs. Mm-hmm. And we tell them this is not the 101 program. This is the PhD level, because we are going full bore for 3.5 days. I don't mean full bore like work. I mean, there is work involved, but it is that consent and willingness to say, I have something that I need and must address in my life, and I'm willing to see whatever I need to see and not unsee it.
Right. And, for a lot of men, the immersion is that great way to begin the work, to dive in the deep end, because if you knew how to do it by yourself, you would have already. Let's be honest.
Right.
It's why podcasts like this exist, and it's why we do the immersions. And it's boot camp. You want to know how to become a soldier? Go to boot camp. Right. So you want to get into this men's work. This immersion is that deep dive. And why do we do an immersion, Michael? What's the point of this immersion? Yeah. Why do we call it that?
Well, just the word itself, and we're big on words. It's to immerse oneself, to fully engulf oneself in an environment. So when you come onto an immersion, you're away from your home, you're away from your loved one, you're away from technology, you're away from the demands of your life on purpose, and it's amazing what it takes. And I bless every man that comes to carve out 4 days for himself. It feels like that's asking a lot these days, and we honor that in a big way. But for those 4 days, it's like we talk about, like immersing yourself in a country to learn the language.
There you go.
This is an immersion into a new language, a new paradigm, a new perspective, just to take away, not to heal or fix everything, right? Not to try to change everything, but to have a new perspective on the things that already exist. And as we mentioned on previous episodes, it's where that paradigm shift, it becomes not about the circumstance, but about the man looking in the mirror. And as he does his work, he does it for all men, and he does it for his legacy, and so on.
Right.
So that's the purpose. And in our crazy life, I'll finish with this, but our crazy lives, this is how we learn now. This is the modern day way of learning, is go immerse yourself somewhere for a short or long period of time into that thing.
Well, and it's the most effective way.
Exactly.
I mean, again, I'm really glad you used the language paradigm, because look, let's say you want to learn to speak Spanish or French or some other language, and you got option A, where you hear the sentence, you get a new sentence every week. So once a week, you learn a single sentence, or you get dropped into that native speaking country where you are
With
fully
no
immersed.
money, no.
Yeah. We don't have to make it that bad. But if you suddenly are immersed in that language, you're going to learn a lot faster.
Right.
Now, luckily, you have a couple of translators, me and Michael, at these immersions that speak
Right.
both languages, where you're at right now, and the language of where you're trying to get to. And this is it, man.
Yeah.
We've talked about the reason for men's work. And I've said this before, in tribal and indigenous cultures, there is a very definitive rite of passage from boyhood to manhood, where you
you for
give up
bringing
the
that up.
trappings of being a boy and the connection to the mother in the womb, and you embrace the positive qualities of what it means to be a man: honor, accountability, integrity, leadership, service. We don't have those rites of passage anymore in our society. And as a result, a bunch of little boys running around in adult male bodies. We had the archetypes of the warrior and the shaman and the king, as role models in the past. Now we've got rappers and celebrities and sports stars, which are often horrible examples of what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
So these immersions is one, reinitiating that rite of passage.
Yeah.
Right. So
we pause
men,
on rite of passage for a moment.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, because in a previous episode, again, we talked about in a couple of them the pains or the places that men fail to become men, right? And we talked about blessing and mentorship, unexpressed emotion, but this rite of passage is the other one.
Right.
Men have not been through ceremonially, maybe. I was bar mitzvahed as a kid, right? I'm a man now, and that was more cultural, right?
Right.
But how do men, and most men haven't experienced that, and these immersions have become a rite of passage, as you said, for men to go through what they didn't get. And man, that has produced some of the most beautiful moments I've ever experienced in my entire life. To witness men being amongst men, and the level of depth, vulnerability, just heart, trust, beauty. We can give a million examples of this, just seeing men heal traumas, heal wounds, fall in love with their loved ones again, their wives, their children, committing anew to their path. Maybe it's of sobriety, or so many ways which a man has reclaimed his life in these immersions.
Yeah. And literally reclaimed his life. We had one man who said, I would have committed suicide if it wasn't for this brotherhood. And we didn't know that at the time that he told us that. It was like, wow. Right. It's like it got dark for me. Yeah. And this brotherhood was my lifeline. So, our goal, our mission is to save men's lives. And sometimes that's literal.
Yeah. And, the purpose of us talking about this for you men out there is yes, go to an event, whether it's ours or anyone else's, but get yourself involved in the work. But underneath all that, it's community and being in brotherhood. And these are opportunities in a live version to be in space with each other. Obviously, we're on a podcast. We do a lot virtually. We do a lot virtually with our mastermind group as well. And it's powerful and beautiful. Man, there is nothing about the live experience that you can compare it to, or can be compared to it. I grew up going to concerts. Like, that's my thing. I love that. And live, it's where it's at. And that's what these immersions are able to bring forward, and the power. And something, if I can get metaphysical for a moment, being in a container like this at an immersion is a quantum space, meaning that what accelerates and is possible is way faster than what would happen on your own. Again, the lone wolf. But there's something, I can dare say the word magical, that happens when we get together in these circles, which is why men have been meeting in circles for millennia. It's a power center to do the work, to transform, to come out the other side with the newfound wisdom to bring back home to their families, their communities, the elixir, as we call it. And the immersions are an acceleration of that healing, of that transformation. Amplify, you name it, crucible.
It's an accelerant everything. And an amplifier for sure. 100%, a quantum amplifier.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've literally had men, state an intention, a goal or purpose on day one of an immersion. And a week later, like, magical is about the only word you could describe it. Shit reorganizes in their life, and that thing happens, right? We've seen it. It's like, I'm going to do this within the next 6 months.
4 months later.
2 months, a month later, 2 months later, boom, it's already done.
Yeah.
It's an amplifier. So, whatever needs to be healed in your life, whatever your goal, your mission is, these immersions are amplifiers, and it's where you get your work done. I mean, I remember my first immersion doing men's work. Like, I was terrified
Same
to be around other men.
And I think everyone else in our group would agree with us on this one.
Yeah.
Like, really? What are you scared about? It's like
they may have been terrified of me. I don't know. Kidding. But I was because I'd never had safety in a circle of men. I've never had true support and brotherhood in a circle of men. I'd only had not enoughness, bullying,
machismo,
challenge, machismo, all that other shit. So I was terrified. Talk about healing. Talk about transforming. That's like that's one of the first things that drew me to MDS, is that sense of family and brotherhood. Fred calls his core group of instructors the wolf pack. And the motto is, if you call one wolf, you invite the pack. Like, we got each other's back. That's the intention behind it. That's what drew me into it. And so this feeling of brother, can you imagine, men listening, can you imagine having that kind of brotherhood and feeling in your life? And not just that. Here's a really important piece. A lot of us feel supported, like, yeah, my guys would have my back in this scenario, but it's because they know the persona of you. They know your personality. They know the image that you portray. What would it feel like if they knew all of you? Because I would be willing to bet that a large number of us have this feeling, this insidious, sneaking, quiet voice inside of us to say, if they really knew who I was, if they really knew the shit I've done, then they would all leave.
Yep.
Nobody would love me, right? Nobody would support me. Like, I would be abandoned, ridiculed, humiliated, whatever.
Say that statement again, because I know we've brought this statement into one of our immersions as a core primary question to get into some of the work. And I think this is in our actionables of how to dive into this. It's like, can you state that question, that statement again?
If they really knew who I was, if they really knew me, they would all leave, right? Nobody would love me.
If they really knew this.
Yeah. Whatever that thing is. If you really knew this about me.
Right.
Then, and Jesus himself said, he who has not sinned cast the first stone. Every one of you has skeletons in your closet. Every one of us has shadows that we've been hiding. Every one of us has done things in our lives that we are shameful of.
Oh.
And the lies of the shadow, the lies of that voice within that not enoughness tells you, you're the only one that's this fucked up. Nobody else has done what you've done. You're really messed up. That's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. Can't say it enough. Because
when you go ahead, finish.
Yeah, in these immersions, when men have had the fucking courage and the transparency and the vulnerability to stand up and share these things, this deepest, darkest, like, oh God. And no, that's not required at every immersion. But I'm saying when men have done that,
right,
every other man stands up too and goes, yeah, brother, me too. You're not a beautiful and unique snowflake. You're not the only one. We've all shared these fears and these shames and these things that we've done. And when you can understand that, then you're being supported at a whole new level. What was that, Michael?
Yeah, and that birth of your work is my work, right? And seeing a man go through his process. But I think there's an important couple of myths to dispel here, because I think some men may have experience with men like, oh, okay, like get stuck on the process, like a man going through it, what does that mean? Or is he crying? What's kind of the raw experience of that? And, although that that happens and is a part of it, it's I think men can often get like scared, frankly, and just speak into that a little bit.
I mean, how transparent do you want to be? Do you want us to tell them about the bloodletting and the chicken sacrifice? Or?
Well, I'm not going to put it on the website, but
what about the branding at the end? No, I'm kidding. No, we don't do any of that.
This is my way of saying, let's talk about, like, because I imagine men are like, yeah, sounds good. Sounds like, what do you guys do? And I think it's important to share a little bit about that. Obviously, we know where our boundaries are with that, because like any experience, you want to have your experience with that. But I think it's important for men to say, like, well, what am I doing in that 3.5 days? I've never done a men's weekend. Like, what can I expect? Can we hit on that a little bit?
Yeah. And I first want to address that question of, well, what do you guys do? Like, what is it? That's your lower mental, egoic mind trying to figure all the shit out and have all the answers and play it safe.
I.e. control.
Yeah. You just want to be in control. You don't need to know every detail. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step.
And I'll share with my first men's work experience, as yours was. Well, for me, I was invited by a man. I didn't really know what I was going to. I knew it was going to just be men. That's the only part I knew.
Yep.
And they did that on purpose. And it was to allow things to unfold. If I had known what was going to happen, it would have vastly taken away from the experience, or I would have judged it without really knowing what it was, because I would have taken it out of context. And I think that's what I see a lot, like on Instagram and stuff, when I see other men's groups and they're doing good work. But as far as the marketing, they show a lot of the process where I'm like, I don't even know if I'm into doing all that, and I'm into it. So it's like, how much of that, but it's really about the result, right? And what you have to do to get there. But I think it's also important for men to know, like, in this defining of masculinity and the modern day man, like, what does a modern day man do? A modern day man sits in circle with other men and discusses what's really going on. He does nervous system reorganization. He does breath work. He does self-defense. He does training. He does all types of things that are the embodiment of masculine energy.
Physical exercise. Yeah. All of that. And backpedaling a little bit, like, yes, those are all components of our immersions. There are processes that we couldn't explain even if we tried, right? Like that, and there has to be an air of mystery, man, because let's liken it to the hero's journey as popularized by Joseph Campbell, right? The first step of the hero's journey is leaving the ordinary world, stepping out of the ordinary world into the extraordinary world. And there is an element of mystery. No hero in mythology got a roadmap and an itinerary of the extraordinary world before he stepped into, so he could judge whether he liked it or not. That's not the way it works.
Right.
There has to be an element of mystery. So we initiate that on the first
moment
night.
One.
When men arrive, you are stepping out of the ordinary world, and we make that really clear. And there's a bit of a shock to the system, and not in a physical, like electric paddle shock. But that's a part of it. And this is also to facilitate the work, because look, if you knew what every moment was going to be like before you got there, one, there's no variety, right? We'd be bored out of our minds. Right. Two, your lower mental would be in control the entire time, meaning you're never accessing higher realms. You're never accessing that emotional intelligence.
I want to add something on this hero's journey piece for a second before we get too far away from it, because I like the thread that you're on. The hero's journey, it's the story of adventure. Right? It's literally, the first step is the call to adventure, the call to knowing that there's something more. Yes, then refuse that call and so on. But there's a calling to something. There's some great adventure. And we often say in IgKnight, if you were watching the movie of your life, would you be on the edge of your seat with excitement and anticipation, or would you be changing the channel because you were bored out of your mind? So if it's the latter, then there's some work to do. Because you're the hero of your life. You're the hero of the journey that you're on. This is an adventure. And for the men listening to this, you guys are men of adventure that want more. I want to squeeze life, that know we're here for a short period of time. Yeah, I want to fully immerse myself in that. Yeah, I want to go deep. Yeah, I want to get to the raw and the realist and come out the other side, because I know that's what's going to make the biggest change in my life, and it's the most effective way.
Right.
And I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
Right. And there's a term, brothers in arms, right? Talk about men who face battle together, right? Who face death together. And when you come to these immersions, you're facing death, not physical death, but there is a part of you,
Yes.
that old part that's broken, that's wounded, that's not working in your life, that must die, right? So that the new may emerge. So there is
death
a
in the rebirth.
Yeah, there's a bond created with the men that are going through the same thing, because you guys are going through fucking battle together.
Yep.
You guys are going through this transformation together. And brothers in arms, very real thing.
Yep. That's why we call it the Brotherhood, right? It's we jokingly call this process the spiritual car wash.
Yeah.
And because what a man looks like, it's so interesting that the face will literally morph and change, and the bony structures and how a man looks and the energy he's giving off will literally change from the first day to the last day. And we often throughout a weekend will have men look around and see when they start to notice men's faces changing on a basic physiological level, as things that you've been holding, stress really is how the body interprets it, starts to release or unbind all the tension. And your body is a tensegrous system. As you pull on one thing, it pulls on everything. So as that stress leaves, literally the matrix of collagen and fibers that hold your whole body together, it really does come down to the collagen. It's anyway, that's a whole other story. That connective tissue matrix.
Shit.
Yeah, the connective tissue matrix that transmits energy and information faster than the nervous system. That's more primal, right? But as we hold that tension, squeeze that, and then start to move it, it's like literal years wearing off the system. And men look younger and more vital and changed. That's the best explanation I have for it, but it's tangible and it's visible and it's real. And I'm honored to say it's worked every time. I don't think we've ever seen, and maybe knock on wood, I don't know, but it's worked every time in the way that it needed to work for each man, which is the other beautiful thing. As universal as these things are, every man has his personal, unique experience that is timed exquisitely.
We've been doing these immersions for 4 years now. We've done an immersion every quarter. Never once has a man at the end of the immersion go, yeah, I really didn't get anything out of this. Like ever. Ever. And
we've had a man leave before he got there, essentially. We got there and then left, but not
like never walked in the door.
Right.
He immediately realized he was not ready for his hero's journey.
No, for sure.
And part of the hero's journey, leaving the ordinary world, then there's the refusal of the call. Usually there's meeting the mentors. That guy hightailed it at the refusal of the call.
Yeah.
Which is
he refused.
Crazy. Yeah.
But everyone in their timing,
yeah. But
he got that far. Some men never get that far.
Yeah. As far as what's going to happen at these immersions, while I'm not going into specific processes, I will tell you this. You will be challenged. You will be supported. You will be loved. You will face your fears. You will physically exercise, exert yourself, and face pain. Internal, external, emotional pain, physical pain, what you brought there with you, right? You will be transparent and transformed. Actually, you'll only be transformed if you're transparent, right? You came there for a reason. Play full out. Do the work. That's what we're there for. Nobody came to stick their toes in the water and see if they liked it, right? You're committed to diving deep, to playing full out, to bringing everything you are and giving everything you've got for the transformation of your life and your loved ones and your mission and your soul, everything. That's what it's about. And we promise you that we'll bring the goods. We'll, through all the processes, through physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and every one of those are going to be tackled. Every one of those are going to be addressed. Every one of those are going to be exercised. You will leave that event transformed. Guaranteed.
I will
That's what I'll say
guarantee
about
that
what
as
happens
well.
at the Immersion.
Yeah. Beautiful. You know, I feel men out there hearing that and it's like, yeah, finally someone calling me forward into knowing I'm more than I am and be willing to allow it to hurt a little bit. And when we say hurt, you know, there's an important aspect of men's work. We briefly mentioned it on the previous episode, but once we have an awareness of what's going on, there's a real acknowledgement that happens of the pain that you've held, that you've repressed, that you've experienced, in whatever way you took it on. And that's a little unique to each man. And when that moves through the system, it's not that we relive that pain, but we must be with that pain enough for it to be able to move. And when we do that, that's where the transformation occurs. So often it could be messy, it could be hard, it could be challenging. But this is where men build and use courage and fortitude and trust and vulnerability and presence. Funnily enough, all the things that women want from men.
Who knew?
And these are the things that men, it's hardest for us to do. And frankly, again, it's not your fault what happened to you. It's your responsibility as a man to deal with it. And whether it's Ignite the King or any other men's work out there, the point is to start doing the work.
Yeah.
It's to be in community, find a brotherhood of men, and not just a social thing. Like, do it with intention. Go with the purpose of being able to talk, express, hold space, witness.
Yeah. Drinking beer, talking about girls, you know, smoking cigars and playing poker may be fun. That's not brotherhood. That's not what we're talking about. That ability to be vulnerable, again, for all of you to be seen.
And a lot of this comes down to making yourself a priority and be willing to invest in yourself, whether that's going to a weekend like this or whether it's buying a course or whether it's finding a men's group in your area. You gotta, it's going to cost you a bit to do that. You're going to have to choose that over other things and make it a priority and make you a priority. And you're going to have to say no to things. And this really works on that pleaser shadow that we talk about.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have sovereignty, as we talked about on another episode, if you don't have sovereignty over yourself and you're constantly giving to everyone else, what's going to happen is it's going to show up as, I think men really need to get this. The shit that you don't deal with, it doesn't really go away. It will show up bigger and louder and stronger every time you don't deal with it. And it's like, we talk about the feather, the brick, or the truck. And it's like, just know that there's work to do. If you're a man saying, I have no work to do, well, honestly, I'm just going to say next, because if you're not even willing to acknowledge there's work, you need to start somewhere.
I think delusional is the correct word.
Yeah. And what does that mean? Work. Like, I have shit to look at myself. Yeah. And we're just men that we're further along in that path, man. If I would have, and I definitely found personal growth in my 20s, right? I didn't find men's work until 2016. So, already a father. But man, if I would have found this type of work as a teenager, wow, that would have been interesting. That's what I'm doing with my son, right? He's like, when can I come to an immersion? When can I come to an immersion?
9.
Like, he's like, I'm ready to be there. I'm like, a couple more years.
Yeah.
Well, future casting of a,
right.
program for the youngers.
Yeah. I don't remember who originally said it, Tony Robbins, whoever, whatever. You have to choose your pain, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And this isn't about coming to immersion, not about being disciplined. But when you talk about that, making yourself priority, the pain of regret is one of the most excruciating pains I've ever experienced. And I've also heard it said that the definition of hell is meeting the person who you should have become.
Yep.
Men, if you don't do this work and you continue existing instead of thriving, if you continue to let these wounds fester in your life and you continue living energy neutral and average is all that you strive for, the pain of regret at the end of life is excruciating. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Step up. Step into the uncomfortable. Step into the unknown. Know that you are meant for more and fucking claim it. That's what these immersions are about.
Yeah. I would love for us to, and I'm thinking right off the cuff on this, but what can you recall as a energy or a lesson that came from a powerful experience and an immersion that we can offer the men as wisdom as we start to bring ourselves, into the end of this episode? And I'm calling myself out on this, but just real poignant moments that were so transformational. And I'll share one right off the bat. And it is a little bit of sharing one of the processes. But it's fine. We have so many of these things that we do. But there was a moment, it was during, I think, our lover immersion, where we had the men lined up facing each other. And Russell read a beautiful story or poem. I don't remember what it was. And for a minute, the men stared back and forth in each other's eyes and just held presence. And then when the minute was up, we rotated and the next man, and we did that till every man connected eyes for a minute with each man. And it was so beautiful because it was very reverent. And to feel men's hearts open in that way, where not a word had to be said, but just allowing someone to look into your eyes. We call eyes the gateway to the soul, all the stuff, but it is a vulnerable place. How often, and look at humans walking around the streets now. People, they're stuck in their phones, but no one looks each other in the eye anymore.
Right. And for men to look another man in the eye without it being a challenge,
right?
It's different.
And we had to coach them through that, right? We had to soften the gaze.
Combat. Drop your ego.
Right? Yeah. And tears came for some men, just deep. We had I remember some really powerful shares after that of men never experienced that level of presence, just held without an agenda, without a domination or a submission, equal for a moment. So that's something I'll share right off the bat of really some almost unexpected, powerful moment,
Yeah, there's powerful moments when men experience trial by combat, in one aspect or another. And I'm not going into details on what that was, but some men had never been in a fight before in their lives. And the liberation and empowerment that they felt from no longer living in fear of that experience. They'd never been in conflict, in physical conflict.
Right.
And we maintain a tight ship or container and safety for all men, in everything that we do. But for men to actually have to step into that, I mean, it's like Fight Club, right? Not that we're doing Fight Club, but what was the message of Fight Club? This, rule number 8, if this is your first night at Fight Club, you have to fight. So men who had never been in a fight, they're scared shitless. And when they're able to experience that with the safety parameters that we create, they were liberated. Like guys who were literally shaking in their boots were ecstatic afterwards, going, "I want to do it again."
Right.
That's an amazing thing. Don't you think that's going to carry over into every area of their lives?
Yeah.
When they face any conflict in the bedroom, or not the bedroom necessarily, but the boardroom, right? Or the guy who cuts them off in traffic or whatever, like to be able to transform your consciousness or emotional state from why me to fucking try me. That's powerful.
Yeah. Oh.
We have men that committed to sobriety at an immersion that recognized how they've been numbing. And look, guys, all drugs are medicine. Alcohol, prescription, recreation, all drugs are medicine. And with medicine, you're either healing something or you're numbing it. And if you're numbing it, the problem ain't getting any better. So this guy realized how he'd been numbing all of the things in his life and made it a commitment, a bold. He first acknowledged how he'd screwed everything up and made this bold statement and has maintained that. We have watched his life transform.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
a few
power
men
of the
with
immersion.
sobriety.
Yeah, because of the support that they had, because they knew that they didn't have to do this alone anymore, because they had a powerful group of men that were there supporting and going, yeah, I got you, bro. And to hold them to that highest standard, they were able to do what they hadn't been able to do before. That's powerful. That's the immersion. Just these, we're offering a couple of grains of sand over the entire beach of experience of what this is.
Well, yeah, and we can tell stories for days, but what I want to share is not so much a story, but it kind of came to me like to culminate here what an immersion is about. We say immersion, immersing ourselves in the experience. The word that I want to make sure we get here is embodiment. Because what you're doing at an immersion is you're embodying these energies that we're talking about, these experiences. You can't fight a guy over Zoom. And not that everything's a fight or physical, but there's a lot lost in translation, right? And when you're live together experiencing in a group container, there's an embodiment. Yes, we talked about it being an acceleration and an amplification, but it's an embodiment of these energies.
Right.
And when you embody it all the way down, literally into your nervous system, which is a lot of the work we do as well at the immersions and working at a high level with reorganizing the nervous system. That is what actually makes the changes that happen sustainable. Anyone can go to an immersion and have a peak experience, have a big aha moment. But if you're back doing the same thing on Wednesday that you were doing before you came to an immersion, then did it really work?
Right.
So what makes specifically the work we do in Ignite different? There's an embodiment of these changes down literally into the nervous system.
It's not a motivational seminar.
No, it is not. We're not just jumping up and down to get it in. What we know now and have known for a long time with quantum science is you have to get it all the way down into the nervous system. You have to condition it into the nervous system. You have to rewrite those epigenetic patterns, which would be a whole nother episode that we get into, I'm sure.
Right.
But that is the key fundamental piece of why an immersion is so important, because it's the embodiment of the change.
Right. And body, mind, and spirit has become kind of cliche, but it is so for a reason. When you have all three present, when you have all three online, when you have all three in line, and you have all three engaged, transformation occurs. Right. Period. Point blank.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today on this topic, on what an immersion is. And, without telling every detail, I feel like we're able to translate that experience. It's quite a life change. Being able to facilitate these has been a huge honor, I know, for you as well. And to be holding men, literal blood, sweat, and tears as they go through their process at times. And, what's fun for me is we run a real tight ship, as you said, and we know how things are going to go. And because of that, it creates the space for the organic, spontaneous things to come up that every time has been so remarkable. that you couldn't ever plan for, that makes what we're doing and the experience of just that much exponentially greater, has been a real joy. Just want to share that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there may be some things you heard, you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. Or it scares you. The thought of the immersion scares you. Good. Lean in. Your transformation is in the thing that you're avoiding.
Yeah.
So whether that's the emotional work, the physical work, whatever it is, lean in. We promise nobody's died. Nobody's gone to the hospital. Yeah. And nobody's gone to a psych ward afterwards. Like, it's transformation in a good way.
Yep.
And if you feel some resistance, if you feel some fear, good, lean into that, because it is a part of the DNA of every man on the planet, even if it's been dormant in you before now, to face challenge, to rise above, to face fear and transform it. Look, when you shine the light on a shadow, it disappears. Okay. When you shine your awareness and your intention and your testicular fortitude and everything that makes you a man on your fears, it disappears. FEAR, false evidence appearing real. Face it, and your life will transform. So, and to be clear, it's not like you just sign up online and you're coming to an immersion. There is a vetting process. We want to make sure that you're right for it and it's right for you. But if this speaks to you in any way, shape, or form, reach out to us, because they are powerful experiences, and every single man who has attended them will say the same.
And if you want to check out the more information about the immersions, that's at ignitetheking.com, IgKnight, theking.com. That's a landing page for the events that are coming up. Get more information there and specific topics that we'll be covering at those upcoming immersions. We're excited. We're gonna plan to record an episode of the podcast on Sunday right after the immersion. This is the energy we're bringing prior to the immersion. So we're excited to bring you the energy from the immersion and what experience, what that feels like and looks like. Because again, these immersions are so powerful. We're like, this needs to come through.
Right. And we talk about the 4 primary masculine archetypes: lover, warrior, magician, king. While we embody all of them at all times, each quarter we focus on one of those archetypes. This one coming up in a week, right? My head says the 15th because that's when I arrive to you.
It starts the next day.
Yeah. So the 16th of May, that's the king immersion. The king is the culmination of all the other archetypes. This one's going to be powerful. I don't know. Like, if you want to come to this one, I think it's too late. I don't think
it's too late.
Have room.
Yeah. No, come to the lover in the summertime.
If you really, really, really want to, Michael's a softie at heart. So ply him on the ignitetheking.com website and he may say yes, but we'll make accommodations. But yeah, stay tuned, because the next episode will be from the immersion, and even our energetic state, Michael and I, is transformed as a result of that immersion. So
100%.
Yeah, come and get the gold, come and get the juice from that experience. So we'll see you on the next podcast.
Yeah, look forward to it. Have a beautiful day, brothers. Aho.